day. Today we're going to focus on creating basic architectural drawing. In this case, we're going to create a doghouse, and we're going to utilize several of the modification tools along with the basic drawing creation tools to create this doghouse. And it's going to be a little bit unique. We're going to be doing a floor plan of the doghouse, and then we'll also do a front elevation of the doghouse. So to get started, as we always do, we're going to go through and do our setup routine. Basic setup routine begins with the units command. In this case, we're going to go and choose drawing utilities, units, and we'll use architectural units. 1/16 of an inch. Our doghouse doesn't have to be any more accurate than 1/16 of an inch for our level of precision. No angle changes, and our insertion scale will still be in inches. Our second setting, hit the escape, is going to be down here on the bottom row. We're going to turn the grid off. We'll go to polar tracking, right mouse click and use settings. I'll set my polar tracking to 5 degrees. Make sure that it's 5 degrees. In this case, what we'll do is we'll kick it to 15 degrees, so that way, again, showing you a little bit of a difference of change. I usually use a 5-degree basis. 15 degrees for our design today will work really well. We could even do 90 degrees if we were just doing all straight lines. We're going to track using orthogonally only, and it's going to be absolute based. Object snaps, want to make sure that you turn on the midpoint and perpendicular. Center, endpoint, intersection, and extension. So there are 6 object snap settings that you've set. Our last setting is layers. So we're going to go to layer properties, and we're going to create some layers. The first one we're going to create is a wall layer. All I did was hit the enter key twice to create a new layer called dimension. And so the idea is that I don't have to keep going back up to the top and picking it. I can just hit the enter key once to enter the name, once to create a new spot. And so we're going to have walls, dimensions, center lines, and for the center line I'm going to need to change the line type. So right now Phantom 2 is loaded, but I need center lines. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. By the way, all the line types that are AutoCAD ISO, those are metric scaled line types for English drawing. So they're 24.5 times the size that you need for basic drawings. In our case, we're going to just use the standard center line. We may have to increase the actual scaling of the line type to see it, and we'll talk about that when we put in the center line, because our X2 and half scale are still too small for what we're actually working with. I'll select center lines again, because the first time is that we loaded it, the second time is that we're selecting it for the layer itself. Wall and dimensions we don't have to worry too much about. On the wall, we're going to change the line weight. We'll make that 0.5 millimeters, so it'll be a little bit thicker. And then we'll change colors. Again, I typically use a burnt orange or a dark orange. I'll use a purple, and then we'll use the darker green for center lines. Now those are just the colors that I typically use. Companies will specify those colors for you, or your instructor may specify specific colors. In my case, it's more about getting the project done. Alright, so we've now created all of our layers. Leap of faith, hit the close button, and our layers are showing up on the list. Okay, we're going to go ahead and begin with the center line layer. Typically you draw center lines in your drawing before you draw any other object lines. The center lines help you lay out your drawing. In most mechanical style drawings, center lines are the basis of the drawing. All the dimensions are based from the center points or the center lines that are on the drawings. In architectural drawings, many times center lines are used to locate the center of the walls or doorways or openings like windows. And so in our case, what we're going to do is draw a vertical center line to indicate the center of our doghouse and to help us align the elevation of the doghouse also. So we're going to draw a line. We'll pick a starting spot here on the screen. We're going to point straight up, and we're going to draw a line approximately 10 feet long. So we'll type in 10. Now if I just type in 10 and hit the enter key, it assumes that it's 10 inches. For me to actually get feet, I've got to put in the single quote. The single quote indicates a foot measurement, and that allows me to change it from an inch-based measurement, which is no units, or the double quote is also indicated as inches, to a foot-based dimension. Hit the enter key. Center line goes way out of the screen. I roll my mouse to see if I can see the whole thing, and I still can't see the whole thing. So what do? Well, the first thing that you want to do is hit the escape key on the keyboard. That stops the line command. Now there's two steps that you could do here. You need to regenerate the screen, basically recalculate the position of the screen because the line went off the screen. There's two ways to do that. You can double click on the wheel of the mouse very quickly, and that is going to invoke a zoom extents. The zoom extents command will magnify the line to fill your screen. The other way to do that is to come over to the right hand side and use the zoom extents button. Both will work. It's whatever you feel comfortable using. I'm going to double click the mouse, and you can see that my screen image has changed. If I roll my mouse back one click, you can see that I now have the full line on my screen. You'll also notice that the scaling of the line type, I can no longer see the dashes very well. And so this poses another issue. There is a command called line type scale. LTSCALE. I just typed that in. It's something you're not going to find on a menu. It's not in a pull down. It's not in a ribbon. However, if you type in line type scale, it allows you to set a scaling factor for the line types. Right now, our current scale factor is 1. Since I'm drawing a line that's larger, if I put the line type scale at 4, let's see what happens. Now 4 may not be the right answer. We're just going to see what happens at 4. So when I put it at 4, I can start to see the dashes again. Are those dashes large enough for my drawing? Now we've got to make a decision. There is a calculation method to be able to do this. We're going to get that calculation method accomplished in a video at a later date. But it deals with the scaling and printing factors that you have to work with. So you coordinate the LT scale to the printing factor, your printing scale factor you're organizing. But for our particular drawing, 4 looks pretty good. I can see it when I'm zoomed all the way out. As I magnify, the dashes are going to be quite visible. So right now we're going to stick with 4 as our lucky number. Now we could have went to 6 or 8, and we would have been very happy with 6 or 8 also. Again, this wasn't about getting a specific scale. This was about making it look good. We'll deal with scaling in a future video. So where do we begin? Well, we need to change our centerline layer to a wall layer. We're going to start with the wall of the doghouse. Now this doghouse is no slouch of a doghouse. It's going to have a couple of very unique features. First off, we're going to start with the line command. We're going to arbitrarily pick a point. Okay, so we're not specifically going in any XY position location. We're going to just pick a point here, and we're going to make this line 4 feet wide. Now 4 feet could be 4 with a single quote, 48 with no quote. Both will qualify as 4 feet. To give you practice, I'm going to type in the 4 with the single quote, so you get into the habit of putting in the single quote. So that is a 4-foot line. Is it centered? No. Does it have to be centered? Not right now. We're going to make our next line 5 foot 6 inches. Uh-oh. How are we going to type in 5 foot 6 inches? Well, again, we can use the single quote, 5 foot, and we can type in 6. That indicates a 5 foot 6 inch value. Now we could type in 66, which is also 5 foot 6 inches in inches. So you take the 5 feet times 12 plus 6 inches, 66. We could type that in also. So 5 foot 6 inches. All right, that looks good. But I'm not going to draw a straight line here. So I'm going to stop the line by right mouse clicking and choosing enter. I'm going to draw another line straight up, also 5 foot 6 inches. And we'll stop that. So at this point, I've got the basic structure, but this doghouse is special. It actually has an arc on the back. It's a curved back to the doghouse. So we've got a very cool architectural feature. Well, we've got two ways to draw it. We can draw a circle on the back of the house, on the back of the doghouse, or we can draw an arc. And I'm going to choose to draw an arc. Now when you choose arc, I hit the down arrow, and there's a lot of different options with arcs. When you're doing an arc, you want to know what the data points you have to work with are. For example, I know the start point, I know an end point, I pretty much know the radius because I typed it in earlier. So knowing the start and end points are important. If I pick the start, the center, and the end point, I don't know the center point here. That becomes a problem. So I'm going to have to use either the start end angle, start end direction, or start end radius. Well, using either the start end direction or the start end radius will accomplish what I need to get done. So again, the arc command is based on what knowledge you have and what points you can select accurately. So we're going to pick a start point, pick an end point. Oh no, that's not the way I wanted my radius to go. My radius isn't working. So what happened? Well, the arcs are created counterclockwise. So what it's doing is it's creating the arc based on the way that I told it to create the arc. I picked the start on the left, the end point on the right. It's drawing an arc counterclockwise. Let's try it again by picking the same command, start end radius, but this time I'm going to pick the right side first and then the left side. Okay, I should be able to pick a point straight up here and make a tangent. I want it to be about 2 foot in radius, so I can type in 24, and it's going to be a 24-inch radius. But you saw that the arc was visible in the upper location this time as opposed to the lower based on the direction that I picked. It works out pretty well. So that's our general doghouse shape. How can we center it? Well, that's going to require a move command. We need to be able to move the object. And so modification commands all work the same, or are very, very similar. We're going to select the objects. We're going to start with the command itself. We'll then select the objects, and then we're going to do something with it. Move it, rotate it, copy it, scale it, mirror it. You name it, rotate it. We do something. So we're going to choose the move command. I'll select my objects, and there's two ways to do that. I can pick the object by individually selecting the object, or I can window around it. Notice that when I window, I get a blue window if I go from left to right. But notice that it also highlights the objects now, another feature upgrade, as it's inside the window. If I went from right to left, I get a green window that has a different scenario. That means that anything that touches the edge of the dashed lines in the green surface will be selected. Here, anything that is inside, notice that the green center line is not being highlighted because it's not fully inside the blue box. Whereas if I use the green selection, everything about the doghouse would be selected. Let's demonstrate. So if I went green, everything gets highlighted that it touches. We don't want that. In this case, the blue works best for our selection. Now when you're done selecting objects, you need to right mouse click. When we right mouse click, it then moves us to the next step and says specify the base point. Well, the base point is going to be on the bottom of the object, and it's going to be at the midpoint. That's one of our standard object snap locations, is the midpoint of a line. Now I'm going to move this midpoint straight over to the center line. That's going to center our geometry up. You'll notice that I got the blue boxes. Those are called grips. Now the grips are easily turned off by hitting the escape key, and that happens many times when you select an object. For example, this center line now isn't long enough to go fully through our doghouse. We're going to need to pick it and extend it. So how did I do that? I picked the line, got the blue boxes, picked the blue box on the end, and then just moved the blue box and left mouse click again, and it anchors a new location for you. So you can stretch lines by using grips. It's just an extra bonus capability within the grip environment. So with the doghouse, I also need to offset the wall width. Well, the walls are going to be 3.5 inches thick. So I'm going to use the offset tool, which is a modify command, and we're going to choose the offset tool. The first thing that it asks is what is the distance of offset. So it's going to be 3.50, and if I don't put anything, it knows it as inches. So 3.5 inches. I select an entity. I select a direction. If you do it wrong, you could offset it to the outside. We want to keep the outside dimension stable. And picking the object, picking to the inside, we're good to go. We got to trim the corners up. Now there's two ways to do this. I can use the trim command or I can use grips. So I'm going to show you how you can do it using grips in one corner and how you can use trim in the other. So if I grip it, I can pick the blue box, shrink the line back to the location. That's a pretty easy way to do it. But I could also use the trim command. So if I pick trim, the first thing it asks is select objects for cutting edges. So for example, if I pick the horizontal line, that's a cutting edge, that's going to allow me to trim the tail of the vertical lines. Okay, the two little tails. If I pick this vertical line over here on the right hand side, that's going to trim off the tail of that horizontal line. So you can select as many cutting edges as you need. Now, if you select everything as a cutting edge, many times it works flawlessly. Other times you're going to notice that you're going to have to nibble away to get everything trimmed away. When you're done selecting objects, what do? You right mouse click. When we right mouse click, we now select the objects we need to get rid of. And I'm just selecting the object that I would like to trim. When I'm done, I right mouse click and choose enter. We need to put a doorway in. So for the doorway, I'm going to use the center line and offset it. Okay, we know that the width here is about 4 foot wide, so we're going to offset this 1 foot to each side. Again, using the offset command, we'll type in 12 inches, or you could type in 1 with a single quote. we're going to offset the vertical line to the left and to the right 1 foot. But then you're saying, this isn't the right line type. When you offset the line, it copies the line type. So we need to change these two outer center lines to object lines, and then use the trim command to clean it up. So we're going to go ahead and select them, grip them. That's the easiest way to change them, is by gripping them and then changing to the actual layer that you would like them to be on. Hit the escape key and you have successfully changed them to a different line type. We'll use the trim command and we'll have to figure out what cutting edges are. So it asks us the cutting edges again. Well, we know the outside of the wall is going to be a cutting edge. It's going to go ahead and trim the lower portion. But the inside of the wall should also be a cutting edge, because that's going to trim the upper portion. So how are we going to get rid of the doorway opening here? That's right. We have to actually select the two lines that we offset, because those are the cutting edges for the doorway. So we can trim the doorway out, and we can also trim the object. So now we've got a very cool looking doghouse. And you've learned many different modification commands. Our last thing that we're going to look at today is how to create the elevation. It's all about projectioning and being able to project the position and heights and locations. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use the wall command again. We'll draw a line, and I'm just arbitrarily drawing a line. It's going to be too long. Notice that I started the line outside of the doghouse on both sides. We're going to start a new line, but this line I'm going to come up and highlight. Now I'm not going to pick here. There's no left mouse clicks, there's no right mouse clicks. I just highlight. Just come over here, highlight that corner, and you'll notice that I get a dotted line. I haven't picked the thing. This dotted line comes down and anchors itself on the line that I created. Now I left mouse click, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this up 3 feet. Do the same thing to the other side. I escaped, right mouse click. We're going to choose the line command, highlight, no left or right mouse click, bring it straight down 3 feet. Very cool. And so at this point I'm going to draw a diagonal line, but I need it to be at about 45 degrees. Notice how the 45 degree locks in. Remember, we set our angle at 15, so I can lock in every 15 degrees, 15, 30, 45. So I'm going to use a 45 degree angle for the roof slope here. And so you can notice that it'll lock in at 60. So it locks in nicely at 60, but I'm going to lock it in at 45, find the intersection to the center line, and then draw in the roof slope. How do we accomplish the doorway? Same scenario. Highlight a line, highlight the edge of the door, bring it straight down. And this one we're going to bring up 2 feet or 24 inches. And I'm going to do that again on the other side of the doorway. Anchor it, bring it up 24 inches. And this time, let's go ahead and draw an arc. And that's going to be a 1 foot arc for our opening. Have a little bit of cleanup here to do for trimming. So we use the trim command. Cutting edge. Cutting edge, cutting edge, cutting edge, right mouse click, trim, trim, and trim. Now, if you want to get fancy and put an overhang and a fascia board on, you can offset for the fascia boards. You can offset for an overhang. It's actually pretty easy. Let's go ahead and put a 3-inch overhang on. So we're going to use the offset command, 3 inches. Offset the outer wall 3 inches on both sides. And then we have this really cool command called extend. Now you don't see it on the sheet, but it's under the trim. So we're going to extend to the outer lines that we just offset. What are we going to extend? The roof line. Now we're going to go ahead and offset that. 3.5 inches is our fascia. And again, we can use the extend command to extend to the outer overhang location of our fascia. Use the trim tool, cutting edge, cutting edge, cutting edge, cutting edge, cutting edge, cutting edge, right mouse click, trim, 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 up, trim, trim, and trim, and trim. Looking sharp. That is one really nice looking doghouse that you've created. Again, let me throw some dimensions up here for you, and I'll take a screen snapshot so you know exactly the sizes that we're working with. And putting dimensions on your drawing, pretty easy to do. We use the linear command. I pick 2 points, endpoint and endpoint, and it creates a dimension. Problem is the dimension's really small, so I need to scale it up. There is a command called dim scale, dimension scale. You can type it in, D-I-M-S-E-A-L-E. Again, we're starting simple here. I want to scale up the dimension. So putting dimensions on an architectural drawing are a little bit more challenging. We're going to choose the linear command, pick 2 points. We should probably change our layer too, wouldn't you think? That would be good. So let's change our layer, choose linear, pick 2 points, and our dimension isn't that big. Now we could grip it, right mouse click, and go to quick properties. The quick properties will tell us the basics of the dimension itself. So it's a standard dimension style, it's got basic text overrides. If I right mouse click and go to the full properties, I then have the ability to go and do some editing. And one of the things that's edited or editable is the dimension overall scale. And that's 6 times the original size. I had just set that to test 6. Well, 12 times maybe even better. That's going to double it. So you can see that we can easily change the scale of a dimension. Let me go ahead and put a few more dimensions on. And we'll make a couple of changes. We'll put a radius dimension on here. And an angular dimension. Let's see here, what else do we need to put a dimension on? Overall depth. We've got that dimension, 66, plus that, that'll go there. We have the width, we have the opening. We need the height of the opening yet. And again, the goal is provide all the dimensions that you need to be able to replicate the object. We'll need the wall thickness, and the fascia thickness. That's going to need to be an aligned dimension. So that way it shows the appropriate thicknesses. All right. Notice that all the other dimensions are pretty small. I can grip all these, change the properties of all the dimensions on one setting at one time. So just go to Properties, slide the slider down, dimension scale at 12, hit the escape key, that'll increase it, and then I will go ahead and change the style of the dimension. We can also do that with the properties. I'm going to select all of them except for the two 3.5 inch ones. Actually, let's do that. We'll select all of them. We'll right mouse click, go to Properties. We're going to change this from the standard dimension style to an architectural dimension style is what's going to happen. So under primary units, dimension units, we're going to change from decimal to architectural. Hit the escape key. And you can see that we're now in feet and fractional inches. Again, I can grip dimensions. If I need to, I can slide the text over so it's not directly in the center of center lines. Adjust those accordingly. We'll do a screen capture of this so you have an idea of what the drawing will look like prior to creating it. Have a great day.